To call to order the Historic Preservation Commission special meeting for Monday, October 14th, 2024. Our chairman, John Bonin, is under the weather this evening. And so I'm going to ask for a motion and a vote to appoint me as the chairman pro tem for this evening. Shannon, is that a motion you can make?
I got one.
Sure.
I got it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Or go ahead.
I move to appoint Bill Harlow as Chairman Pro Tem for the October 14th, 2024 Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
Second.
Bethany, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Harlow?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
And then after this, we should do a roll call just for the general meeting.
Yes. Okay, so that motion carries, and now we'll have a roll call for attendance of the special meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Barkley?
Here.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez is absent. Chairman Harlow?
Here.
Commissioner Elder?
Here.
And Chairman Bonin is absent.
Okay, thank you. Both of those pass. Well, we'll move on next to the approval of the minutes from August 7, 2024.
I will move to approve the minutes from August 7th, 2024.
Second.
Were there any comments? I was not present for that meeting, and I guess Shannon, you weren't either.
I didn't know.
Are we,
If you don't feel comfortable, we can always move these to the next, meeting. If you've reviewed the video, if you've read through them, you're okay to vote. Otherwise, we can continue them to the next meeting.
okay, I've read them, but we just got back from Japan and I'm on a different time zone, so I would rather not approve these, particularly with 2 abstentions. So we'll just postpone these.
Yep.
We'll pass them off to the next meeting.
Perfect.
It wasn't my sense that there was anything in these that required, approval at the next meeting. No one was
There's no
waiting.
rush.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and table these minutes until our next meeting.
Can we do a roll call vote for that?
Sure. Roll call
Commissioner,
vote, please.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. Okay, that moves us on to the public meetings for this evening. We have 3 of them. The first is HPC 14-2024, 304 South Lincoln Street. There are going to be 2 motions for this particular case, a certificate of appropriateness and also zoning permit and fee waiver. So, who's here for 304 South Lincoln?
Good evening. My name is Vince Capri. I'm representing Joe and Jeannie Peterchuk. We've done several projects on this home. The first project we did was in early 2000 for the Bowers. First time I've seen the name Owl Ridge. I guess that's what they called it back then, or that's what they found out it was called. The project that we did for the Bowers was a very extensive addition, and it was really tricky to find that brick. And we found a way to do it where it was close enough, but we were able to take care of it. It was a big 3-car addition, family room, kitchen, and everything like that. But what the Peterchucks would like to do is an addition to the back, because they want to have an elevator. They would like to keep this home and be able to use it as they get up there in age. So we're hiding an elevator behind a prefab fireplace that's going to go in the family and in the master up above on the 2nd floor. And the fireplace, the elevator will be accessible from the 3-car garage, and I'll have a doors that will give you access from the garage side and also from the other side, opposite side, so from the north and from the south. And we will be matching the existing brick, the existing roof, and just keeping up with the style. And I saw that you referred to it as Gothic. Oh, we were thinking it was more like Queen Anne, but a little bit in the Queen Anne Victorian, but
That's what the
we're gonna
past
keep the same
surveys have
style,
identified
and we picked up on some of the details that we added for the back. And so we're hoping that we get a proof of this. And the owner is also planning on doing another project next door, which is not related to it, but he owns that property as well. So he will be doing it at the same time, and this will be minimal disturbance to this land, because it's about 300 something square feet, first floor, and then you're going up and going down below. We're not adding any attic or anything like that. And the homes, the photographs that I included of the homes surrounding this are very in style, as everyone can see.
Mr. Caprio, you mentioned the prior edition that you all worked on. Is that also when the three-car garage was put on?
Yes.
With the larger center
Actually,
bay?
I have a set of those drawings that I did along with my business partner, Jim, who was on the board.
Yeah.
And Rita. That was a major addition that the Bowers put on.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember too.
And they were great to work with. And so has the Peter Chuck's been just as good to work with. This will be project number, for the Peter Chuck's, project number 4 or 5 on this.
Wow.
All right, so I also did a gymnasium in their basement. We had to dig out the bottom of the old part of the basement. We had to dig it out so he had more height in there for his equipment. And that happened about 3-4 years ago.
So you mentioned that when you did the prior edition, it was difficult to find a matching brick. Do you anticipate that difficulty again?
You know, I think we'll be able to find it now. Back then, for some reason, the builder we were working with, he was having a hard time finding it, but he found something close. We just found, matter of fact, we're working on the building at 102 South Washington, the Odegaard building.
Yep.
And that building was built in 1880. We just found a brick that matches that brick. And the mason found it up on the north side of Chicago. And when we put it next to it, it matched. Almost, it's like, where the heck did you get this brick? But because we had those walls on that building were pulling away from the existing frame. And when we were replacing the windows, we noticed it. I called Ron McGinnis out to the job site, because we're doing the construction as well. Called them out, and I warned them, and we had to set up protective canopy, because we were concerned that would pull away and crash. But right now, they've just completed it today, all the brickwork. So, but they found brick for that. I have confidence they're gonna find brick for this house.
Questions, comments, concerns?
I was just gonna say, I like the way you really, replicated what would have been there. It kind of is very seamless. But I don't really have anything else.
The tricky part was getting all those headers above the windows because they're sharp angles,
Oh, really?
and they're double the size of a standard window header.
I mean, I also actually just hearing that they're putting the elevator in so that they can stay a while, I think that's an awesome use for our incentives. I mean, it really, we think about that now in our house. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
fabulous use of our incentives.
That elevator moves a couple times during the design phases. It was not where we ended up.
It also suggests that it gives the house real staying power,
Yes,
long-term,
100%.
because of that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it an accommodation, right?
That house, the Peter Chucks do a great job of maintaining that house. It's in great shape.
It's a beautiful
When I went through it years ago, after they sold it to them, the Bowers sold it to them, they kept it in good shape, and through all the projects we've done with the Peter Chucks, they maintain it really well.
Yeah, I'm good.
Chris or Sarah, do you have any?
I'd rather see that with an elevator than some brand-new construction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, yeah, my read of this is, one, the addition is very complimentary
Thank you.
and looks great, and two, just from a, streetscape perspective, it's on the back.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
And-
tucked in the corner, right, you
Yeah.
can, but,
Yep, so it doesn't, right, from the front,
yeah,
which is,
Yeah.
what we care
Yeah.
about the most, you wouldn't even know it's there.
yeah.
So,
You're just asking for 3% more max floor to area ratio?
It's,
Am I reading that correctly? Going from 29 to 31.9?
yeah. I looked at these numbers several times today.
Yeah, no,
I gotta
sorry.
go through them again.
Well, yeah, and the lot coverage.
There's a lot
is
of-
what Also,
Yeah.
it's only going up 1.4%.
Correct.
All right.
They have no problem with the lot coverage or the building coverage. The thing, what it was the FAR.
Yeah.
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 And
It's
this-
a good use of
yeah,
what our intention was.
absolutely. And this is a two motion.
This is a two motion. Unless you have any further comments or there's anything else from the commissioners. Okay. Bethany, do you want to tee us up for the two
I would.
motions on this one?
So one of the motions should be to approve the certificate of appropriateness for a designated landmark. And then the second motion would be the preservation incentive approval of that for the alternative bulk zoning regulations, building permit fee waiver, and expedited processing.
I'll do the first one, or I'll do them both. I move to approve case HPC-14-2024, 304 South Lincoln Street, certificate of appropriateness for a designated landmark and preservation.
And you can
Incentive.
just stop there. We just need it for
Oh.
the designated landmark.
Okay. I drew my line on the wrong place.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. And then the second?
Do I start with, I move to request for alternative bulk zoning regulations, building permit fee waiver, expedited processing, construction of rear addition and exterior alterations to the existing single-family home. Excuse
Second.
me.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
All right, those are both approved, so that case is approved overall. Our second public meeting this evening is case HPC -16-2024, 121 South County Line Road. This meeting is actually going to require 3 motions, but we'll get to those after we hear from whomever is here to speak for 121 South County Line.
Evening. Have a short presentation here. Let me get that pulled up. There we go. Okay, good evening. My name is Douglas Gilbert, to 220 South Maple in Oak Park. I'm the preservation architect for this project. I want to introduce myself a little bit, and my clients unfortunately couldn't be here this evening. They're currently traveling in Germany, but they send their regards. And then we also have another team member, Suyama Peterson Deguchi, and they're based in Seattle, so they're doing the new contemporary edition. This is at 121 South County Line Road, and let me see. I'm just going to give you a quick history. I know most of you are pretty familiar with it. It was already landmarked, but I'll just kind of give you a brief introduction. The house was designed in 1893 for Frederick Bagley, who was a marble merchant, and his wife, Grace, who was quite a prominent social activist, both in the Chicagoland community here while they lived here, and then later in the early 1900s when they moved to Boston, she had a very successful social activist career there, especially in dealing with women's suffrage and children labor laws and immigrant rights and things like that. This was a summer home for them. They had their permanent house in the city, and so when this was built, it was really a weekend or summer vacation house, and was later converted into a more permanent residence after they moved and left sometime around 1904. We're not exactly sure when some of the conversion efforts happened, but probably in the 19-teens based on the design elements. After that, it went through a series of owners. In the 1980s, the previous owners did a large addition off the back, and really not much since then. And so it got to the point that I'll kind of talk about in a minute. Architecturally, it's designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. However, it's not, what we think of when we think of Frank Lloyd Wright around here, at least, with the prairie style, which happened after 1900. This is from 1893-94, and it is a Dutch colonial revival house. Not something he would normally do. Most likely the clients asked him to do that because he did a few colonial revival houses, but not on his own terms per se. However, in the 1890s, Wright was experimenting considerably with different things that would congeal after 1900 into his prairie style. And one of those is quite prominent, and that's that octagonal library that you can kind of see a little bit there in the left rendering. That octagonal form he experimented with internally in several early houses. This is the first one where it is an external element. And he would do that same octagonal form at his studio in Oak Park in 1898. The house was completely clad in shingles. Again, that's something you don't see too much with the prairie style after 1900, but he did that quite a bit in the 1890s, probably left over working with J. Lyman Silsby, who was the person architect he worked for initially. And again, like his home and studio in Oak Park is completely clad in shingles, as are a number of other 1890s designs by him. On the interior, you can see a drawing, one of the original Wright drawings. He had a cascading stair in the entry hall that was sort of shielded by this wood screen. A lot of that's been altered in the inside and will be restored, but that's also a feature that will become quite prominent in his prairie style work. So in 2021, as you are probably well aware, the longtime homeowners put the house on the market, and it appeared to be heading towards an imminent tear down. It's a very large lot, very deep, and the house needed a lot of renovations. The 80s edition worked great in the 80s, but as I like trying not to remember too much since I grew up in the 80s, that's a long time ago. And that just doesn't really fit too well for 21st century lifestyle for folks. And my clients, Safina Uberoy and Lucas Rooker, who you see on the right in the image there, they're both Frank Lloyd Wright aficionados. Their permanent home is in Cincinnati. They bought a Frank Lloyd Wright Usonian house there, have undertaken an extensive restoration of that. So they know what they're getting into. And Safina is the current board president of the Frank Lloyd Wright Conservancy, which is the national advocacy for saving Wright's works. And they really stepped up. The Conservancy, Landmarks Illinois, others were quite concerned about the future of this, and they decided to buy it. And really their intent here is to preserve the house, restore it, put the new contemporary edition onto it, and then make it available for the next generation, a family or homeowner of the 21st century that can really appreciate this. And of course, landmarked it and putting protections onto it as well. So the intent here is twofold. One is to accurately restore the house, both its envelope and the interiors, especially in the main living level, and then this contemporary addition, which I'll talk about in a moment. For the restoration, which is the part I like talking about, we really depend on documentation for if it's not still there, bringing something back. We depend on documentation for that. We have a fair amount. I wish we had more, as always. But we do have the original Wright drawings, which at least show us quite a bit. We have some historic photographs, especially of the exterior, not as much, unfortunately, of the interior. You can see one example we have of the fireplace, which is good because the fireplace has been altered. But we also have a lot, I've done a lot of digging around the house. The original shingles are still at least partially intact underneath the aluminum siding. I found pieces of trim and little tidbits here and there that we can at least take what those were from. We've done an extensive finish analysis of the interior finishes and ghost marks of where trim was and things like that. So we can do a very accurate restoration based on that. And the restoration, the intent here is to go back to its appearance as it would have been in 1894 when the house was completed, and especially on the exterior, we would get rid of the aluminum siding, bring back the shingles. We're even hoping maybe to salvage some of the shingles and maybe have them where they're protected under the porch. But for the most part, certainly the roof and most of the walls would have new wood shingles to match. Most of the exterior elements you see on the front are actually still pretty there and pretty intact. Most of the changes have been on the south side and in the rear. All of those different appendages and additions would be removed. And in fact, there was a rear porch that got incorporated into the 1980s edition that we would bring back and restore that porch as well. And of course, on the interior, we would restore the main floor living space very accurately, with the second floor and basement attic being more of a renovation. And then adding a contemporary wing to the rear area. And the clients are really specific about what their vision is for this. They did not want to do your typical kind of addition, which sort of extrudes out the back. And I've done a lot of those, and it's perfectly fine and reasonable. But especially, and you can see this well with the side view, this Dutch gambrel design and the fact that it had that almost mirrored porch on the back as well as the front means that they didn't want to disrupt that with something just sort of stretching out. And so it's almost as if they're creating a second house. They are connected, it's one structure. However, they really just want them to touch and have a limited amount of contact, and really instead have a dialogue between the new and the old, and allow the new wing, although contemporary in detailing and design, would be subservient to the historic house. They don't want it to compete visually with that. And so what you can see in this image here is it would be just one story with a terrace connecting the two, so that if you're in the new wing looking back, you would see a good view of the historic house, and vice versa. If you're sitting on the porch, this restored porch, you would see this terrace and glazed area. The rest of the walls of the wing would be clad in the same shingles that we're going to restore the house with, so it will really blend and be compatible with the historic architecture. And we're also hoping to do a green roof or living roof that will be visible on the second floor, and certainly the neighbors will probably see a little bit of that as well. Just a few images, and I know you've probably seen the photos, and many of you have seen the house both in and out. The existing conditions, like I say, there's the aluminum siding on the front. It looks very similar to what you see now. Most of the changes were in the back, and those would come off from the 1980s, really, again, bringing back that Dutch colonial character. It's a little hard to see. The trees are blocking it, but on the south side, on the right of the elevation there was a bay window for a door, or for the dining room, and that also had a second floor addition, which would come off. The site is, like I say, a very deep lot, so we're going to take advantage of that. We're not asking for any zoning variances, but we're going to, we're pushing some boundaries here and there as far as that goes. But we've got plenty of room to allow that sort of distance between the two wings to have a dialogue. And I do want to just mention the garage in case there would be any questions about that. This is an existing detached garage built probably sometime in the 1920s. It was certainly not one of the original Wright design elements. It's in very, very poor condition, actually. This photos doesn't do that condition justice. Doesn't set on a foundation, and the walls are, it's starting to lean or whatever. So we do plan to take that down and do a new detached garage that will blend more with the shingle character of both the original house and the new wing. So that's my dog and pony. Of course, there's the model you can look at, and you have the drawings, and I can also, if you do have any questions, I'm happy to pull up drawings and respond to anything you might have, or any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
To be honest, maybe I'm a little trouble wrapping my head around this one. Maybe if I look, so that's the model for it?
Yes.
How much yard space is left over in that, like, green space is left over? So if you're a neighbor on either side, what are they looking at? Is it hardscape now mostly? Because that is a deep lot.
The terrace that's in between would be, let me see, I'll pull up. Pull up this one, as you can kind of see. The terrace that is in between there, that is a hardscaped terrace, and it does have a wall because they will have essentially a lap pool. You can't quite see it, it's right hiding behind the wall there in front. But they'll have to enclose that, so that wall there is a bit of a retaining wall for that. At the rear, so to the right there, is almost pushed back to the rear yard limit for construction, but then it has, of course, a very deep front lot. So in many ways, and you can kind of see that in the model, in many ways the construction goes deep in the lot, but it's also low. And so as far as neighbors go, and my clients have had some conversation with the neighbors for sure, their view isn't, out 25 feet away from them is, another two-story house looking in their windows and vice versa. So on the one hand, yes, it sort of stretches hardscape or building deep, but it also is very low, and with the green roof, that should be appealing.
How tall is that retaining wall that will be next to the pool?
Well, it's, I believe, 4 feet at least at the terrace level. I think it goes maybe 6 feet or so from the grade level. There's not a huge change in grade, but there is the lot to the south is a little bit lower, so there's a little bit of a change there.
So that would give enough coverage, because generally we're not a big fan of a lot of fenestration like that. So that wall would give the house to the south coverage that they're not looking directly into that whole wing.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question. I guess from their second floor, they probably would have a similar, this is maybe a little bit higher viewpoint than that, but they might be able to see in a little bit that way.
Because if that area is lit up at night, that would be quite bright for the neighbor on the south side.
And so that's the master. I'm getting that correct? That's the master bedroom. The new addition is the master.
The area that's glazed, so we'll say right in the center area, that is the living dining area.
Yeah,
The lower with the gray roof area, that's the bedroom wing.
Okay.
And that, of course, is more enclosed off, so you wouldn't have much view in there.
Yeah. I mean, I love that the integrity of the original home is being perfectly rebuilt and preserved. I love that that the owners were thoughtful about the addition, not taking away from the roof line. I mean, that's genius. and it's complicated to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a stark contrast that when I opened it up, I was like, oh, and I had to like sit and process it and kind of talk to my husband about it, and it's such a contrast. But I also know that's in preservation, that's probably the way you're supposed to go, because you've truly preserved the home.
Yeah, I mean, there's different philosophies one can take. And one is to sort of, like I say, extrude an addition that is of the same style and so forth of the original. And I think that would be the wrong choice here because you would really lose the Dutch gambrel character that's on the back. And so in this way, we're keeping it low so that the 2.5-story historic house really kind of dominates, and that terrace becomes like a common area between them. And in the few months of the year that we get pretty nice weather here, that will be such a main space for the next owners to have. And by maintaining the same exterior shingle materials and so forth, it helps to connect them visually so that they are of one, even though they're in many ways reading as two separate things. And I should add, just I didn't, but there's a few of the digital views, and you could probably see it in the model there. From the street, because of that octagonal library sticking so far to the north, the view of the rear area is almost completely blocked. And so it's really hard to see much of that addition, especially by keeping it low to the ground.
Do we have any living roofs in Hinsdale?
I don't think so.
Do we have, is there code? Or like, is that something that is,
They would have to provide us details and make sure that they're meeting all the building codes and any zoning codes for height or other requirements during the building permit review. I know we have a couple commercial living roofs or green roofs. I'm not sure of residential, but I can check on that.
I'm just curious. Okay, we have one, not here, but it's very complicated,
Yeah.
especially with the weather and the snow.
Yeah, certainly there'll be an engineering
Yeah,
to handle that. And the plant selection is also very key so that they are durable and they're not something where you gotta constantly water. They're drought resistant and suitable for this climate, et cetera.
So I'm sorry, I'm trying to go through these. What remains of the original house? You move out the kitchen so the bottom floor is just public, like living room, sitting areas, and then what's upstairs now?
So on the second floor, the original bedrooms would be on the second floor. We're reconfiguring that, but there would be two bedroom suites up there and some living area. It's hard to exactly know what kind of family would want to buy this, but it could certainly be a few situations where it could be an extended family, the mother-in-law suite, or the kids that never move out suite, or it could be a family that has an art collection or entertains a lot, and the front part could be for the collection and for guests and parties. We envision that the new wing would be where people are going to live, their day-to-day lives. There's a full kitchen in there and sort of the open space where that people want today, and the main bedrooms would be in there.
And are you excavating a new basement?
Not really. There's going to be a small basement for mechanicals, but it's essentially going to be, I don't want to say slab on grade because we need footings and foundations for the climate here, but it does not have a full basement underneath the new wing.
But you're digging out the original basement?
Yeah, so the original basement is a little short. We do not want to do the expense of underpinning the foundations, but we did some test excavations, and it looks like we need a new concrete floor down there anyway. And we can lower it to the footing level and get a few more inches out of that. It'll still be a little bit low, but it's going to be a little more. And they envision using that as in addition to mechanicals and sort of a kids game room or something like that, kind of a, maybe even like a lounge or speakeasy kind of character, because there's stone walls in there, and underneath the octagonal library actually has a higher height in the basement. That would be a great wine room.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I recall the second, I've been in the home, the second floor has already had so many changes from the original. that
Yes.
It's really,
yeah, you can
It
see
would
on the
be hard.
floor, there's different locations of bedrooms and so forth. So like I said, we'll have 2-bedroom suites up there and some other kind of space. The attic would kind of be just a generic space that a future owner could sort of modify or figure out what they want to do with it.
So, Mr. Gilbert, speaking of the attic, on the front facade, the west facade, there is currently an eyebrow window, and that's coming out. Is that an original feature?
Yeah, the eyebrow window is coming off, and it is not an original feature. We do have the historic drawings, or photos, excuse me. I don't know if this would pop that up. You can sort of see there on the right. It's not there.
It's not there.
Yeah, so we suspect that that was added at a later time when a later owner wanted to use that space. There is a bedroom and a bathroom up there now, and that eyebrow window is in that bedroom, so we suspect that. It is cute. I
It
kind of
is
like
cute.
it too. And we would keep it if it were original, but since it's not, we're going to pull that off.
And I believe you mentioned before, there are no lot coverage or FAR variances being requested. for
Correct.
this.
We've done some adjustments or whatever, and we are sticking within the zoning requirements, so we're not asking for any variances on that.
Yeah. And that includes moving the new garage off the lot line, which of course would
Yes.
be outside the code, so.
Yeah, so the current garage is literally sitting on the lot line. There's a wing. If I go back to this photo, a couple down here. It's a little hard to see on the left photo there, but there's actually another little extension off the back of that garage, and where you see those trees is about where the lot line is, so it's right on there. So the garage will be repositioned, the new garage will be positioned to be within compliance, zoning compliance, the distance off the lot line.
Okay. It strikes me as a pretty masterful way of restoring the house to the way it was in the 1890s, and yet, again, hopefully making it into something that someone would want now, 2 centuries later. This may be a bit of a stretch, because I too did a real double take when I opened this up. But it does seem to me that in a way, and maybe I'm stretching this a bit, but that the new contemporary living and dining space, the horizontal nature, that actually reminds me a little bit of the Roby House down in Hyde Park.
totally agree.
Um,
Right. Or Spring Green.
Yeah.
It's got a little Frank Lloyd Wright in
Yeah.
it, so.
There's a little bit of that.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the design architects, they didn't want to replicate a prairie style, of course, but they really wanted that sort of horizontality, that sort of single layer of living, the openness. I mean, Wright was about connecting the outdoors and the indoors, and they were really motivated by those ideas, and I think that's one reason why my clients were really excited to work with them on this part of the project.
I thought the same thing.
So how much weight do we put on keeping the house, restoring the house versus keeping the character of the property in general? I mean, I think it's great what they're doing with the house. I'm still struggling a little with the overall property, and the new part doesn't quite fit in.
Yeah, it's a fair question. One thing that occurs to me is that the house, because it's on the east side of county line, is not in the historic district. And so it faces the historic district and it faces a non-historic house. But it seems to me that gives greater leeway because we're not bound by Robbins Park.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I agree. like I said, I was kind of like, whoa, I gotta look at this a little more. I also probably am concerned about the neighbor on the south, because that's a lot. I mean, we almost always have to talk about how much window, and that's a lot of window, and that house is pretty, they're close, they're not far. It's not like the distance between the Bagley house and the behind the yard house. Both neighbors are pretty close, but I think that the way that the elevation looks on the north side does protect, it's a little undercover, but that other side, the south side, is not, and I think that's something, if I were that owner, I'd be a little worried about all that light.
Yeah. And where does that break between our group and the plan commission? Is that?
Right.
Yeah, certainly the north elevation is very limited windows in the new wing, hardly any at all, really. It's the south side that has the greater area. And I'm trying to remember, there may be some photos in your packet of the house that's on the south and the amount of sort of windows they have facing north.
That's a staircase that's on the Sutton's house that faces north. It's their staircase. It's not their living space, it's their staircase.
Do you know on your model where the lot line is?
Well,
Is it in line?
Yeah, it's in line with that, so that would extend.
So this is probably the first proposed. Because we wouldn't allow that on.
There's an
lot line
existing,
today.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Douglas, do you have these elevations to show everyone? These are the two from the north and the south.
Yeah.
This would be
Yeah.
the south elevation.
Yeah.
Taken in that way.
Well, that's why I asked of how tall that, wall is
Yeah.
there, and that if the pool butts up, you're not gonna see people swimming in it.
No.
'cause
No, not
No.
at
It
all.
butts
So it's
up
a
to it.
6-foot wall from the grade essentially, and then it's several feet, I think it's 4 feet above
Yeah.
the level there. So, yeah, you're not gonna see the people swimming in there, because that same view that we were seeing
Yeah.
before, you
Yeah.
can barely even see that even from the height. And it's just a line.
Cool. I mean, I'd love that.
Appreciate and love how you've saved the entire front and back structure. It's genius.
And put the back porch back
Yeah.
on, like sitting on that back porch, looking out onto this is just, it's pretty,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I agree.
I mean, the current owners are to be
Oh,
hugely commended for saving this house. Yeah, this was in real jeopardy. And that was a nail biter, which, I don't know, makes me willing to be more,
100%. I mean, I'm all in. I just it was it took me some time to process it. Because we don't usually see this in town.
Yeah.
you don't.
No.
You did say that the owners have spoken with their neighbors on the south about their plans?
Yeah, I know they've had communications with the neighbors all around. I can't tell you the last time they talked to them and to the extent that they've shown the latest of plans. It's certainly something I can pass on to them. They want to be very open with both the community and their neighbors, and they know, in fact, we were having some conversations with potential contractors today, and some of the questions that came up is, okay, how long is this going to take, and what kind of disruptions are the neighbors going to have to endure? And so they're trying to be very sensitive to that. They had a situation when they were restoring their right house where they had to literally enclose the whole thing because they had to rebuild the roof, and that takes a while. And then the neighbors were like, "Why are we staring at a barn for a year or something like that?"
Do you
So
know the timeline? Like how long it would take and when they would start?
we're looking at hopefully projects starting in the spring,
Okay.
construction starting in the spring, and we're looking at. We'll just say in the neighborhood of 2 years of construction. It might be a little less and it might be a little bit more, but of course that, a lot of that, once that gets enclosed, then it's not as disruptive, it's interior work, et cetera. And part of that is lead time for things like the glazing and other elements. But-
Sure. Well, it's two full projects, really.
Yeah, it's not your,
Yeah.
just like you're, doing a wing off the back and it takes you 6 to 9 months. It's almost as if you're building a second house and there's the restoration. They'll do simultaneously, but it's still quite an extensive. And the contractors we're looking at, just so you know, are those who can do both. That they can do good high-end restoration work, which makes me happy, as well as a high-end new residential construction.
Kristen, do you have any?
Still struggling. Might be a bridge too far for me.
So, it doesn't really fall officially under our purview, but one of the things we've talked about on occasion is asking owners to be receptive to landscape screening. And it could be that, at the most basic level, sometimes that translates into nothing more than a hedge of arborvitae. But, it could be that the owners may want to consider, on the south side of the pool. and that
Yeah,
wall,
absolutely.
A landscape plan, which we don't entertain in this venue, to help mitigate perhaps at least some of the light.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and there would be some ways to deal with that if it becomes an issue with a neighbor, which like I say, they would certainly want to work through any kind of concerns that they would have. They have not yet developed a landscape plan for the site in general. There's some work they'll want to do in the front. A lot of the trees, they've had arborists look at the trees, and unfortunately, a lot of them are in bad shape, even the ones that would not have to go because of the project. So they'll work through that and to replace trees appropriately, et cetera, and have a landscape. But that sort of shielding, using landscape to help shield a little bit and, contain the privacy between the two neighbors would certainly be something they would be very willing to do.
Okay,
You ready?
Sarah, Shannon, Chris?
All right, so this
Yeah.
is
So
to-
Bethany, I'm going to ask you to tee this up again because this is different from the prior and from the next one.
Yes, so there will be 3 motions for this case. The first motion will be to approve the certificate of appropriateness for a designated landmark. The second motion will be to approve a preservation incentive for the alternative bulk zoning regulations, the building permit fee waiver, and expedited processing. And then the third would be to recommend approval to the village board that preservation incentive for the property tax rebate and matching grant. Those 2 will move on to the board after this.
that's separate.
But the HPC has the authority to approve the alternative zoning, building permit fee waivers, and expedited processing. So we just made it really easy for you guys for this case.
All right.
Okay, do we have a first motion?
I move to approve case HPC -16-2024, 121 South County Line Road, certificate of appropriateness for a designated landmark.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye.
Okay, then the second will be for the 3 preservation incentives that the HPC can approve.
I move to approve case HPC-16-2024, 121 South County Line Road, for preservation incentive application, request for alternative bulk zoning regulations, building permit waiver fee, and expedited processing.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. And then our third motion.
I move to approve case HPC-16-2024, 121 South County Line Road. Recommendation to the
The village board.
village board to approve a property tax rebate and matching grant.
Perfect.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. Okay, all three motions pass. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to explain my thought, so.
Yes.
Obviously, I was on the fence with this one.
Yes, absolutely.
Came down to our role being HPC preserving the house, the front, the historic home. I guess I don't necessarily have to be on board fully with everything else. Plan Commission they might be mad at me for saying that, but Plan Commission can work through some of the other challenges of maybe, the south neighbor and things like that, so, but I view our mission is the house, so.
It's
a good
very
point.
exciting.
Yeah.
Cool
Yeah.
project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to our third and final public meeting of the evening, case HPC-18-2024, which is 425 East 8th Street, a home that needs no introduction here. So, looks like we have representatives from Michael Abraham.
I'm Abby Rollinger with Michael Abraham from Michael Abraham Architecture. We are representing the owners of 425 East 8th Street, who are seeking to build a addition on the rear of the existing residence. That'll be a living room, kitchen, screen porch, and we are seeking to match the brick detailing, slate material, and all of the trim and eave work of the existing home as part of the addition. We are looking for expedited processing and waiving permit fees, as well as the tax and grant incentives. But based on our zoning analysis, we are not seeking any alternate zoning. So I know you've had time to look over the packet, so I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
Okay, thank you, Abby.
It's a lot more straightforward than
I
the
was gonna
last
say.
one.
I was biting my tongue.
It's a hard act to follow.
Well, we're grateful to see that this is, again, happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, we lost that one.
Immensely. We've lost a number of these really beautiful stately homes, and it's really nice to see that this one is staying. Three things occur to me off the bat. One of them is that I like the new fenestration on the west side on the front elevation with the current garage space. Not only adding the two new windows, but also making the third existing one larger to
Seem to add some balance to the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
add some additional symmetry. And like the prior two, well, certainly like the last one, it's a large addition on the back, but
Correct.
it's on the back.
It's on the
You
back.
don't see
And
it.
again, from the streetscape, you wouldn't even know that it's gonna be there. And I guess you have room to do that, 'cause it's an enormous lot, two lots.
It's a
actually.
huge combination of two lots, correct? So we did our best not to interfere with the neighbors and to use all of the space that we were given without asking for more.
I don't really have any questions, or, I mean, I think this is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I have a hard time explaining denying this one after the last one.
No.
Not that there's anything wrong with the last one.
So it's actually not an architectural question, it's a landscape question that you may or may not be able to answer. In the rendering that you've given us, it appears that the circular drive and that enormous cobblestone parking area, patio, pad, whatever you want to call it, and all those burning bush euonymus shrubs in the front are being removed. Do you know?
No, I don't see a reason to remove them,
Okay,
and I don't think the owners have an intention to.
okay. And again, that's a landscape question. It doesn't really fall under, I was just asking out of curiosity.
I wish it was my area of expertise.
And again, there's no request for any variances here
No.
in terms of lot coverage and so on.
Not that I saw.
Okay, anything from anyone else? Okay, one last time, Bethany, this I think is a two motion.
Two motions. The first motion will be to approve the preservation incentive for the building permit fee waiver and the expedited processing. The second will be to recommend approval to the village board for the property tax rebate and matching grant.
Okay, do we have a motion for the first part?
Want me to do it again?
Sure.
I move to approve case HPC-18-2024, 425 East 8th Street, for a preservation incentive for a historically significant structure, approve a request for building permit fee waiver and expedited processing.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. And then our second motion, please.
I recommend to approve, or I recommend to the village board to approve case HPC-18-2024, 425 East 8th Street, for property tax rebate and matching grant.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. Okay, those both pass unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thrilled to see this house
I know.
staying and being
Thank you.
improved. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, that closes the three public meetings for the evening. Is there any public comment? Considering that there's no public, I think not. At least not present. Any new business? Hearing none. Any old business? 6th Street Improvement Project and sign code update. So just a couple quick sentences about 6th Street. That the village board meeting is coming tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tuesday, right. The village board is going to approve for consideration, that's not technically the right way to state it, but that's basically what it means. A special service area for 38 properties that either have a 6th Street address or abut 6th Street with private property for the 4 blocks between Garfield and County Line. We're starting with an SSA of $2 million that would be paid exclusively by those 38 homeowners. There is good reason to believe that the village could well receive a grant in excess of $1 million for infrastructure, not for bricks. That ultimately comes out of the infrastructure blowout bill that was passed by Congress last year. If that happens, then the village may be able to move some money toward restoration of the surface. And then the SSA amount, which can't be raised but can be lowered, would then potentially be lowered and the 38 homeowners would be unhook for a smaller amount, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $23,000 or $24,000 over 10 years, as opposed to about $54,000 over 10 years. So to be clear, if we receive the grant is strictly for infrastructure. If the street is redone completely in brick, that will be on the residents. And we should know if we get the grant, hopefully in December. There will be public hearing on the SSA, both for people who support and people who object to the SSA, with a final decision likely being made at the village board meeting the week of February 15th, 2025. So after almost a year of this point, we're getting close to knowing what's going to happen, one way or another within the next 4 months or so, it appears. And I'm cautiously optimistic that Sixth Street is going to remain brick. There's a lot of resident support for that.
I was gonna ask, good.
But some of that will depend on the grant, and if it comes through, and if that means that there's less of a financial burden. So we'll see, but cautiously optimistic right now. That was more than a few sentences, as usual. Sign
you.
code,
Thank you for doing what you've done on that. I know you and Jen and there's a group that really has worked really hard, and I really appreciate it.
thank you. It's been a moving target.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not there yet, but yeah,
Yeah.
I hope it comes through. Sign code update.
No updates. We are bringing tomorrow, though, to the village board some landscaping and screening code updates. So that's what's been taking quite a bit. And we've endeavored, as we were talking about lighting earlier, not for single family, but for other properties, we've just started the discussion on updating our lighting code requirements.
Okay.
So the landscaping code took us about a year to get through. It was referred to the board back in January, and we're finally bringing it back. So the next thing is the lighting, and then after that, that's the sign code. So we're hoping to get that started next year.
Awesome.
Not to hold people up, but Bethany, can you tell us anything about the Memorial Building patio out there now?
I don't have any recent updates except that things are planted. They've got hoses trying to get things watered in, and it looks really great. And I think last week we just had the furniture delivered, so some of the furniture is out there. So take a look on your way out. And I don't know if that's all of the landscaping or all the final touches, but I know they're trying to just get things ready and obviously things planted before winter as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it looks great.
It's a nice
Yes.
improvement over the condition of what was there
Yes,
before.
what was there before.
Yeah.
This is much nicer.
Yep. Also much nicer is the condition of the lobby
Yes.
here in the Memorial Building now
Mhm.
that Hinsdale Community Service has moved to their new and improved
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Location. So that's a good thing, and as we move toward the centennial for this building in just a couple of years now.
Yep.
So, okay.
Awesome.
Anything else? Then is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Elder?
Aye.
Chairman Harlow?
Aye. Okay, thank you.